Now, I'm going to jump right into it because of the fact, again, that we have to shave some minutes off this. And, my job today is to talk to you guys about, as quickly as we can, and I mean in a viral multiplication type way, I'm here to talk to you guys about how the heck we are going to break more directors faster, quicker, and better than we ever have in the history of this company. See, the director is the absolute lifeline and the heartbeat of this company. Everyone in this room should be a director or above. If you're not, then you're going to hear a bunch of information that's going to make absolutely no sense to you for the next 2 hours and say, why was I in this room for the last 2 hours? I don't even know what this company is. I should have been at breakfast, and I agree. What I recommend is if you're not a director, I'd probably sneak out to the bathroom and go have some fun for the next 2 hours, go to the mall until we get back to the regular training. And those of you guys that snuck in non-directors, if you think you're doing them a favor, you are not. You're just going to confuse them. But let's talk about the fact that how the director is the most important building block of the company. Without directors, there is no company. Without directors, there is no BMWs. Without directors, there is no ambassadors. See, that director is the most important building block of the company. And this isn't just theory. It's not philosophy. It's actual statistical data. We spent, after our first 4.5 years in business, we spent 2 days in a boardroom breaking down every piece of data that we had as a company. And we were trying to find correlation between the biggest month that we had ever had and the correlation between what was driving those months. So how many guys might think that our biggest months would be tied, and obviously I've kind of given away the answer, but how many guys might think that, hey, prior to what we talked about a few minutes ago, that the biggest months might be tied to the most amount of new executive success systems, right? Most amount of new people. How many of you guys would have thought maybe it's the most amount of new ambassadors? That would have been the biggest month that we had. How many guys would have thought it's the most amount of new BMWs? How many guys just don't think? Anybody not think? Let's try this again. This is a real question to you guys. Biggest month the company's ever had in our first 4.5 years, the month that we just did really, really well in the first 4.5 years. How many guys would have guessed, if you were to guess, that would be the month that we had the most new people join the company? Whose guess would be that? All right, that's about right. That makes sense. How many guys would have guessed it would have been the most new people to hit the top position that month, right? Okay, a couple people. How many guys would have guessed it would have been the most new BMWs that we had qualify that month, right? A couple people. How many guys would have guessed it would have been the most amount of total, listen to this number, the most amount of total distributors, both new and old? Who would have guessed that, right? It's not. Here's the number. Here's what it is. It's the most amount of new directors. There was no correlation whatsoever between any of those other numbers. The only number that correlated through the entire historical data of our company was the month that we had the most new directors. Most what? New directors. We had the largest month. The most successful months were the months with the most amount of directors. So leaving here, we've got to make sure that we create a factory that just stamps out directors. Stamps out directors. Stamps out directors. How many guys wouldn't mind having a director factory? Who'd be all right with that, right? I want a director factory, right? Just stamp me out some directors. And we're going to talk about that director factory. Now, the director factory, guys, is going to be broken into two categories. I'm going to start with sharing with you the most important thing you can do to break new directors. So let's say for a minute here, these are your 3 new teammates right here. These 3 are your 3 new teammates. And they're brand new executive success systems. You're going to assume or think because of your nurturing mentality or possibly your management mentality, right? Nurturing, right? There's a lot of nurturers in the room. Take care of them, help them, grow them. And then there's the other folks that have more of a corporate background with a management philosophy. I've got these 3 people. I must educate them. I must train them. I must develop them. You're going to assume that the best thing you can do to get these 3 to director is to sit there and just make sure they go director. And to call them over and over and over and over and over and over again until they hit director. Until the point where they really just don't even take your calls anymore, right? When your call pops up, the ignore button is pressed, right? you assume that the best thing you could do for these three is to take care of them. If I take care of these three, they'll go director faster. And this is very paradoxical, because the best thing you can do for these three to get them to director, you're already a director. The best thing you can do to get these three to director is go get three more. The best thing you can do to go get these three to director is to go get three more. It's like, no, that's not right. I can't abandon my children. See, this is a business that's all about showing. It's not about telling. And if you get your three people and you stop doing the actions that got you these three people, and you're trying to tell them what those actions are, instead of showing them what those actions are, they're not going to do anything. Because every time you point at your team of three, you probably have three fingers pointing back at you. So let's practice this with my front row three here. So when you say something like, hey, how many people do you three have at the presentation? You guys are probably going to say what? How many do you have at the presentation? Right? So let's try this. If I say, how many people do you have? What are you guys going to say? All right, we got two of you. I got one more finger. Here we go. Come on. How many people do you have? And you guys say? How many people do you have? That's exactly what your team is thinking. How many calls did you make? You guys are thinking? How many people just signed up? And they're thinking? Now, I know right now there's some uplines that are shrinking in their chairs. So like, Nick, don't tell them this stuff. Guys, it's not a secret. This is what they think. Maybe the only secret is from you. Every time you point the finger at your team and say, how many calls did you make? How many people did you bring? When are you doing this? When are you doing that? The only thing they're thinking is, yeah, when are you? How many people do you have? When are you going to sign someone up? How many customers are you going to get? How many people do you have there? That's the only thing they're thinking. So for you to think that you managing them is going to get them to director faster than you calling more people is crazy. Because if these three see you on the phone, guess where they are? On the phone. If these three see you bringing guests, guess what they're doing? Bringing guests. If these three see you getting a new business partner, guess what they're doing? Getting a new business partner. So you've got to show them, not tell them. You've got to show them, not tell them. This is called management. Management is it's necessary, but it will not explode your business. If anyone wants to explode their business, I mean explode their business, let me hear you say explode. Explode. If you want to explode your business, then show them, don't tell them. Here's the sub-point of this same topic. The sub-point of this is you now have people in your waiting room. And when you have people in your waiting room, it's crazy how fast they get to director when you start running a contest. Now, you might say, well, how do I run a contest? And the answer is, you won't run a contest. Your regional director or national director and above will run the contest for you. But I can tell you this, they won't be able to if you don't have anyone in your waiting room. So what must you have in order for us to run a contest? People in your what? Waiting room. You got to have people in your waiting room. If you don't have anybody in your waiting room, there's nothing that we can do to explode your business. Now, here's a rule that we have, guys. It's called leverage, never stack. Write that down. Leverage, never stack. What this means is you don't just go in your waiting room and start putting people under people. I don't know what it is. It's one of those things where, like, you're on your 90-day challenge, but there's a brownie right there, and you just can't help but grab it. People feel like this overwhelming need to move people in their waiting room for no apparent reason, just because it's there, right? So I've been working on something with Blake diligently. And, Blake's a really smart guy. And we've outsourced to some even smarter guys in Russia, because there's really smart guys in Russia. And what we're doing with the new ViNet system is when you go into your back office, into your waiting room, and you click the button that says, I want to move person X to person Y, a giant hand will jump out of your computer and slap you across the face. And then after that, the pop-up will pop up and go, are you sure? Because I felt that the "Are you sure" box was just not enough, right? See, when it comes to your waiting room, there's two things you need to do. Number one is have people in it, and number two, don't touch it. When somebody talks to me about why their group's not going, where do you think the first place I go is? I go right in their waiting room. I go, yep, it sure isn't. You've got no one in your waiting room. It sure isn't growing. You haven't done anything since the first month when you signed up your cousin, your brother, and your mom. And they were your pity sign-ups. They signed up for you out of pity, right? So when are you going to keep prospecting? When are you going to keep making phone calls? When are you going to keep doing this so you can add your next three? Now, I'll give you guys one small example, just one small example of what a regional director might do. Regional director might call with you your top three folks and say, hey guys, we've got 3 people in the waiting room. Therefore, the first person to go director out of the 3 of you, we're going to put a director underneath you. Now, how many of you guys, if you're brand new, might go try to hit director really quick if a director would get put underneath you, right? The rest of you guys wouldn't try? You want to lose the contest? Let's try that again. How many of you guys, if you got a phone call, you're brand new, and your leader said, if you hit director before these other 2, we will give you another director. How many of you make sure you win that contest, right? So now your leader just gets with these 3 and just says, hey, the first 2 of you guys to refer to, I'm going to give you 1. Boom. Rachel or Rochelle? Rachel goes and knocks out 2. We put him underneath her. She's the director. We move her underneath them. Done. So the point is, you don't need to know how to do that. We do. We're going to teach you that at regional director training. But what I want you to know is we can't do that if you don't fill your waiting room. So everybody, raise your right hand. Everyone raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear to continually fill my waiting room and to not touch it until my leader tells me to. High five to the person next to you.